It'll do 0 to 100 in 7.2 seconds and go on to a top speed of 216 kilometers an hour. We're going to kick things off today with a slightly somber tone. I'd like you to please spare a thought for the gorgeous VW Jetta, the practical VW Passat, and of course the amazing Arteon, none of which are still for sale in South Africa. They've all fallen by the wayside because you prefer this. This is the new VW T-Roc, and particularly the newest version, the 140 kilowatt R-Line. The T-Roc is a Golf-sized SUV. It's slightly larger than the T-Cross, but a little bit smaller than the Tiguan. It's got coupe-like styling and it really looks good, but I wonder if it's half as good as the Jetta. I will defend the T-Roc a little and say that it is a rather good looking vehicle. I quite like the styling of this. It's got this wide grille up front and bi-LED headlamps. These little elements down here in the bumper are the DRLs and the indicators. So there's no mistaking this front end for anything but a T-Roc. Down the side you get little black plastic pieces that give it a bit of an off-roady look and feel. And that chrome line that runs above the windows, well, that's deliberate to give it coupe-like styling elements. If you opt for an R-Line, you're going to get no fewer than 21 colors to choose from. The regular models, well, you can have that in a two-tone arrangement, making this rather unique. R-Line models get these lovely 19-inch Suzuka alloy wheels, and while they look great, they do pose a bit of a problem, but I'll get to that just now. Take a walk down the side here and you can follow these satin silver roof rails that add to the SUV-like appearance, but I quite like this crease over here that gives the T-Roc some hips. They tie in beautifully to the 3D element taillights, and the back end overall is rather attractive. There's a lot of rake on the rear window here, which gives it those coupe-like features, and I think this chrome strip is actually very Audi. But one thing you will notice is that this vehicle actually isn't all that big. In terms of boot space, the T-Roc is rather generous. You're going to get a full 445 litres in the back here, and I quite like the fact that the sill and the boot floor are roughly the same level. It means that loading and unloading is a breeze. The floor is relatively high, and that's because you do have a spare wheel underneath here. It is a space saver spare, but it's a spare wheel nonetheless. Should you fold the rear seats down, you are going to get 1,290 litres of space here. The one little downside to the T-Roc is that you can't load it too high, and that's because of this raked rear window. It's here on the interior where you feel the pinch in the space. I was genuinely expecting this to be a little more roomy and a little larger inside. If I'm honest, I was expecting it to be trimmed a little more high-end as well. The fit and finish it's not subpar. I was just expecting more, especially at this price point. It's not terrible. There's still some lovely touches and lovely surfaces, and it's really nicely designed. They've given these Caribou grey inserts here, which break it up a little bit, and it's further broken up by small little dashes of chrome and of course some ambient lighting. What it's not shy on is tech though, and there's a lot of tech in the T-Roc, including 11.2 inches of active info display that replaces the gauge cluster. Think of it along the lines of Audi's virtual cockpit, just not with as many features. You're also going to get the composition media infotainment system. This touchscreen infotainment system is rather comprehensive, and it does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but it requires a USB-C connection. There are 4 USB ports in this vehicle, but they're all USB-C. So you're going to need an adapter if you're a little old school and you use a regular USB port. You can spec it. An optional extra is the Discover Media System. And that's going to give you wireless CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. It's also going to give you inductive charging down here at the bottom. Overall, it's very pleasant. I was just hoping for a little more. The VW T-Roc is also pretty safe. You're going to get 6 airbags. It has ABS with EBD. It has an electronic stability control. It has park distance control as well, with a reverse camera that's displayed up here in the infotainment screen. You're going to get blind spot monitoring and warnings. It has a lane keep assist, which is going to help you steer, and it also has an adaptive cruise control. And these last 2 work hand in hand to give you traffic jam assist. So if you're sitting in heavy traffic, it'll keep you in your lane and off of the bumper of the car in front of you, requiring minimal inputs. Overall, fairly impressed with the safety. When we get down to the oily bits, it's a 2-litre TSI engine that's powering this Volkswagen T-Roc, the R-Line version. It makes 140 kilowatts and 320 Newton meters. Sends that power to all 4 wheels, the 4-motion Haldex all-wheel drive system, through a 7-speed dual-clutch gearbox, a DSG gearbox. And that's the Achilles heel. I haven't driven a car that has had such bad gearbox programming in a long time. I know why they're doing it. It's to save fuel, economy, Euro 9, all these things, but it just stunts the driving experience. The shifts are also just very snatchy, and if you put it in sport mode, it's even worse. That said, put your foot down, and when it eventually wakes up, it really goes. It'll do 0 to 100 in 7.2 seconds and go on to a top speed of 216 kilometers an hour. So of the few detractions that I've got, it's, well, that's somewhat questionable build quality in the interior. I would have liked to have seen better plastics and better trims. The ride is also very stiff, and I mentioned that earlier. We're going over some ruts here, and it's just so harsh. Now, I know a lot of this can be attributed to the large wheels and the thin tires of this R-Line package, but I think as a whole, the T-Roc is just very stiffly sprung. They've gone for performance less than comfort, but in an SUV, you kind of want comfort. When it comes down to how much the T-Roc is going to cost you to run, well, they claim a fuel consumption on the combined cycle of 8.3 litres per 100. Now that's relatively accurate. We've done a little bit of testing up and down, and we're sitting at mid-8s, 8.6 to be exact. And that's not terrible. You see, it's got a 55-litre tank, and currently, as it stands today, that's going to cost you 861 Rand to fill. But it will give you 764 kilometers range. Theoretically, it of course depends on what that right foot of yours is like. I don't think the T-Roc is a bad vehicle. It just has one too many quirks for me to warrant spending this sort of money on this sort of vehicle. And if we're talking rands and cents, this T-Roc 2-litre TSI 140 kilowatt DSG 4-motion R-Line, it's a mouthful, it really is going to cost you just shy of 594,000 Rand, and that's a lot of scratch. That said, they will sell it to you with a 3-year 120,000 kilometer warranty and a 5-year 90,000 kilometer service plan. So there's a little bit of peace of mind, and of course those can be extended. It's a bit of a fans only vehicle, and I wonder how many of these they're actually going to move.